Hiya, Tarryn here from Generation Health. Today I'm going to be talking about insulin, and in the terms that I'm going to be talking about that is glycemic index and glycemic load. Now, glycemic index is the one we'll address to start with, and what we're actually measuring is carbohydrates. So when we talk about carbohydrates, we are mostly concerned about how quickly the carbohydrate that is being eaten is converting into sugar in your blood. Okay, so what it is being compared to is glucose. So in your blood, glucose would have a glycemic index, so a GI of 100. And all other carbohydrates are falling somewhere within that scale as to how quickly it's converting to sugar compared to glucose. Now, the concern is that if a carbohydrate that you've eaten is turning to sugar too quickly, then that's going to produce a spike in blood sugar, which is going to trigger a hormone called insulin, which is a fat storage hormone. Now, the reason why it's called a fat storage hormone is because insulin's job is to take sugar from the blood, because you cannot have sugar in your blood. So its sole purpose is to remove the sugar from the blood and deposit it somewhere. Now, the somewhere depends. It's either going to take it to your fat cell, in which case the fat cell will expand to fit the sugar in, or you'll create more fat cells, or it'll carry it to the muscle cells. Now, ideally, we want it to be carried through the muscle cells, and what that's determined on is the amount of insulin in the blood. Okay, so I've drawn up here a blood sugar chart. Now, what you can see is that these two lines here, okay, these two lines are the two lines that your body is always trying to keep your blood sugar levels within. So never going above the line and never going below the line. Never going above the line and below. So how this would feel is that you're starting to get hungry, and so you'll eat, and just the perfect amount of sugars are in the blood, and therefore you won't come crashing down. And obviously this looks like sustained energy and sustained appetite. So not ever getting to extremely hungry to an extreme low. Now, when a carbohydrate is high glycemic, if it is converting to sugar too quickly, then it looks different to this. It is going to go above the line. So your blood sugars will rise. And when the amount of sugar in your blood from the carbohydrate, which is converted to sugar too quickly, when that happens, then your body must produce insulin. Insulin's job is to remove the sugar from your blood in order to try and regulate your blood sugars back within here. Okay? But when your blood sugars have risen this high, it's like your body kind of has a freak out, and your pancreas will overproduce the amount of insulin necessary. When you overproduce insulin, your blood sugars are now dropping. And when they drop and become too low, so beneath this line, then you produce a stress hormone, and the stress hormone is called cortisol. So cortisol and insulin are the two hormones that are fat storage hormones, and these are the ones that we're trying to avoid at all costs. Now, what happens when your blood sugars have dropped and you produce cortisol, the stress hormone, is that it's your body producing a hormone that's trying to communicate to you in the only way that it knows how, that you've got to get your blood sugars back up, because when your blood sugars are too low like that, that's also bad. And the kinds of foods that you crave when your blood sugars are low, or when you're hangry or grumpy hungry, what are they? I've yet to hear of anyone craving apples or bananas at this time. When your blood sugars are low, the types of foods that you crave are high sugar. Muffins, biscuits, breads, sandwiches, these kinds of foods. And they will cause your blood sugars to rise. So then you get a rise in blood sugar, followed by too much insulin, which gives you a drop in blood sugar, and so the roller coaster continues. Now, when too much insulin is in the blood all day like this, it is the perfect environment for fat storage. And when cortisol levels are high as a result of high insulin, then the perfect place for your body to store that fat is around your midsection. Now, as your insulin levels start to balance out and cortisol levels start to balance out, and you begin to have your blood sugars be operating within this line, as a result of that, you'll start to find that your body, that insulin is no longer carrying to the fat cell, and it's actually depositing good levels of sugar into the muscle cell, which is what you're aiming for. Now, the glycemic load is referring to the quantity. Okay, so while glycemic index measures the quality of a carbohydrate, or the speed that a carbohydrate converts to glucose, the glycemic load is taking into account the quantity, which the glycemic index does not. So, as an example, if you were to eat one apple, an apple would be low glycemic index. However, if you were to eat 2 apples, then it would actually be high glycemic load. So while the type of sugar is the good kind, the quantity is too much. And if you have the type of carbohydrate that's converting to sugar too quickly, or you have too much of a good thing, then that also is going to mean that you have large amounts of sugar in the blood. If you have excessive amounts of sugar in the blood, then your pancreas is also then required to produce excessive amounts of insulin to take the excessive amounts of sugar out of the blood, in which case it will follow, the spike in insulin will be followed by too high levels of cortisol. So the easiest way in which I would recommend that you be managing your carbohydrates as you start to incorporate them into your meals is that you always make sure that you have a vegetable serving with your main meal. If you always make sure that you do, then the low glycemic index of the vegetables will help to regulate out the medium glycemic index of grains, for example. What you want to be looking for are the good quality grains. So the closest to natural, or the closest to nature, the lower the glycemic index of the carbohydrate. So just have a think, in what form did this carbohydrate used to be? So what was its natural form? How many steps have been taken for this to get here? Then I want you to think about the amount or the quantity that you're having. So what you want to be making sure that you're not doing is overeating. So if you are eating till you are satisfied, perfect. If you're eating till you're satisfied, this means you can't pile your plate high with a whole ton of rice or a whole bowl of pasta or any other kind of a grain if you are not overeating. Okay, this will significantly help with the portion size. If you're eating the amount of protein that you need, so about a palm size, if you're making sure that you're always having a serving or 2 of vegetables on your plate, and you make sure that you have a healthy serving of fats, so 1 to 2 thumb sizes, and then you also are making room for grains, then you're averaging at about ½ cup to 3/4 cup sizes. Anything above that, and it's almost certain that you'll be stretching the stomach and overeating. So I want you to use these rules for glycemic index and load. The closest to its natural form, the lower the GI, and you want to aim for about a ½ to 3/4 cup of a grain. Averagely a week, you want to be aiming for about 2, maybe 3 servings of carbohydrates or in their refined or grain form. And you want to just be monitoring what your body's response is to that before you increase that. All right, so have a fantastic week, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.